Hey look, I guess we already made this video 2 years ago, but I wasn't here, so to me it doesn't count, so we're doing it again, and don't worry, we're not talking about The Last Jedi, there's just too much baggage with that one. Oh, and this is gonna be based off of Rotten Tomatoes, just so you know. With everything that the MCU has done to make buff purple guys credible villains and guys who shoot arrows credible heroes and not just an Olympian who also wanted to be a cop, the Eternals were always gonna be a hard sell. It's peak comic book writing, and sometimes that leads things to not really translate well outside the medium. Even in 2.5 hours, there's really just not enough time to effectively say why magical space androids are here, why they can intervene with humanity by jumpstarting agriculture, but not when they see their cousin go on a universal tear and then say, that's not really our jurisdiction. With there being a 30% split with audiences tending to be more positive, the issue that comes from trying to condense exactly what critics are saying on this one is that it's the exact same problem with the movie itself. They're just all over the place. Some are mad that the movie is too slow, some are mad that there's too much going on, but honestly, I would have thought that the numbers would be flipped with critics heralding this as a welcome shift in the MCU, but I guess it wasn't MCU enough for the critics, and different enough for the fans to like it. It's a really weird situation to be in, I guess. Dane Whitman didn't get the Ebony Blade until the end of the movie, so I honestly could not care less. When it comes to Adam McKay's work, you kinda know what you're getting. It's gonna be funny, but funny in an exaggerated, wow, I can't believe people are actually like this type of way. And while Don't Look Up will hammer you over the head with its climate change satire, given that, just like the world in the movie, here, no one seems to care, maybe that's on purpose. Now, this isn't my time to review the reviewers, although that could be a good idea that gets shut down in a meeting sometime. Again, looking at the discrepancy between reviewers who keep calling the movie smug like their entire profession isn't just smugly talking about movies, seems like they missed the point. With a movie about a divisive thing that shouldn't be that divisive, the scores were always going to reflect that, but it's weird that the establishment in this instance really didn't like what the movie had to say when the general audience did. I don't know, just seems kind of weird to me. Or the movie could just be really bad. I don't know. I'm not a critic, so I don't have to watch every movie and have a strong opinion on it. I'm definitely not paid enough for that. At this point, I don't even really know how someone could not like a Fast and Furious movie unless you just don't like explosions, fast cars, and family. But somehow, again, the critics in their infinite lack of wisdom were not looking for a bombastic movie where, spoilers, a car is sent into space, but a serious and gritty movie in a franchise where Dami T can break physics, Hobbs makes Captain America, a genetically modified hunk of a man, look weak since he does the exact same thing with only drive and power guiding him, and just a whole list of other things that really just don't make sense. Admittedly though, the Rotten score is only 1% away from being fresh, making it a 23% split right now, so they still do have time to listen to the audience. Now, not liking these movies in general is fine. People aren't all gonna like the same thing, yada yada yada, but attempting to say that this movie somehow jumped the shark or is one step too far, when I'm pretty sure they had some submarine car action in the tundra in one of these movies. This next one is a weird one for me personally because I assume that this was panned on both sides, but for some reason only critics seem to have a problem with LeBron James' Warner Brothers commercial or the movie formerly known as Space Jam 2. This movie has the biggest difference in score on this list with a swing of 54%, and this time I'm more on the side of the critics. Sure, this is a kid's movie, and when I was a kid, if you put some colorful cartoons on screen and then had an athlete like LeBron, it would have been fine. Unfortunately, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong in the comments because you love to do that, do kids nowadays even care about Bugs Bunny? Or was it just like, oh, it's a random cartoon, I love cartoons type of deal? I know that they wouldn't be loving all the Game of Thrones and Apple references, so the movie just comes off as how many properties that we own can we fit in this? The audience obviously feels very differently, with many of them commenting on how their very young children enjoyed the movie, which is, or what I assume, should have been the target audience. It also just kinda seems like these reviews were written by well-intentioned elderly people, so, you know, that might be why it's so high too. Okay, so video game movies have always had a problem with making something that both critics and fans would like. Sometimes the movies try to appeal more to general audiences and use things like the Animus or whatever was going on in Monster Hunter to draw in fans who will say, hey, I know what that is. But then the core of the movie is completely removed from the rest of the franchise, or, in the case of Mortal Kombat, they just made a fan movie with a pretty big budget. So again, missing the point of what Mortal Kombat is, we see complaints that the emotional journey of our main character is lacking when everyone knows at the core of what makes Mortal Kombat the gaming force that it's been for the past 20 years was the emotional attachment we get in the story mode and not the violence that made late 90s moms lose their minds. Now, to be fair, some of the issues with the movie, like its pacing and things, are actually valid criticisms, but asking for an Oscar-worthy drama in a movie where characters talk in the third person saying they won is like watching a ScreenRant video and expecting. With the sequel on the way, I just hope we get a noob Cybot Scorpion fight. Really, just more Scorpion, that's all I ask for. In another video on the channel, I talked about how Hulk in the MCU hasn't been treated the best, and even before that, he still hadn't been treated like Marvel's heaviest hitter. When it comes to Hulk's first movie adaptation, not including the TV ones, it was a little messy. I mean, I liked it, but I was also 5 at the time, so maybe I shouldn't actually use that as a selling point. When it came to the general response though, surprisingly, critics actually liked it more. Way more, with there being a 33% split with critics generally liking it, but feeling like there was too much talking and not enough of Hulk doing his thing. Now, with that in mind, it does make sense why audiences tended to hate the movie, since they had the right idea that if you go to see Hulk in something, he should be smashing something. In a PG way, I mean, of course. Fortunately, the Incredible Hulk fared much better, but unfortunately, he hasn't had another chance to headline his own movie, and there's no plans for another Hulk movie in the foreseeable future. So we've bashed critics for the last several entries, mainly because some of them need to chill out, but also because they don't have a good track record of getting things right. This time though, it's the audience that doesn't. So, the School of Rock, not to be mistaken with School of Rock, which was apparently a show that ran for 3 seasons, is iconic. It's got Jack Black being Jack Black, which is good enough for me, Sarah Silverman, some humor, and has a decent message for a kids movie, aside from all the impersonation stuff. And while the audience score is still not bad necessarily, a 28% difference is still pretty high. Going through the audience reviews is much harder than critics because you get things like this. It's still interesting that with all the positives, there must be a large group of people who hit the dislike button and move on. Wait. Hey look, another Jack Black movie, and the story is that, yet again, critics seem to enjoy him way more than audiences did, which to me makes absolutely no sense. Is the movie too long? Yeah, I think so. Is it cool to see Kong Island and all the weird stuff that lives there? Yeah. And again, when it comes to audience reviews, it seems like they either don't understand how ratings actually work, because I don't see how 2.5 stars translates to a D+, but then others get right to the point and I can actually see where they're coming from. Kong was never a favorite of mine, especially when the King of Monsters was always right there, but out of all the movies on this one makes the most sense about it being so split. Jackson's King Kong is a very long and plotting movie that feels more like someone just really wanted to show off some new tech than anything else. At least we got a cool game out of it. I really just miss all the movie tie-in games. Another video idea, perhaps. Now for a movie that just straight up baffles me with how the ratings turned out, the first Sharknado movie. And while it has nothing to do with this video per se, did you know that they made 6 of these movies with 2 spin-offs? Remember, you can always get lucky, I guess. I would think that a movie like this would be something that fans and movie nerds would find funny and like it and uphold it like it was The Room or some other terrible thing that people try and act like is good, but critics were actually the ones to say that this was good, and by a lot. There is a 41% difference with the first one, and I just can't figure out why. Now granted, there are only 19 reviews on this one, but for the first 3 movies, critics enjoyed them more than audiences, although the gap does get smaller as they went on. I mean, I'm still confused at how this one movie made a franchise, and admittedly, I haven't seen any of them because the premise of a tornado with sharks in it, and then that's just it, just isn't enough for me. So I can't speak to the quality, but at least this guy Ryan liked it, I guess. Good for him. Finally, we're gonna end this one with a 2-for-1 Prince Roy special because we're talking about the last 2 X-Men movies, unless you count New Mutants, which you shouldn't. So both Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix were pretty panned by critics, which makes sense because they are not good movies, but audiences on the other hand felt more meh but still on the positive side. As a more casual fan of the X-Men, and by that I mean mainly Wolverine and Cyclops whenever they give him something to do, both of these movies commit the absolute worst sin by introducing incredibly important mutants in a single movie and then having them beaten within 2.5 hours. But even without my own personal issues, with Apocalypse sitting at an 18% split and Dark Phoenix at a 42%, I think it's fair to say that Fox's reboot, or reimagining, or whatever they were trying to do, ended much worse than they would have liked. When the X-Men eventually get rebooted again, can we please get Apocalypse and Jean with the Phoenix Force for more than one movie, guys? Please? I feel like that's not actually a lot to ask for. Now, I couldn't put this one on the list since it was on the last one, but Spy Kids not being universally loved by everyone, especially the audience, makes no sense to me when if you just lay eyes on Robert Rodriguez's magnum opus, you will know that it's amazing.